They sold her wedding ring at an estate sale, but the jeweler found her husband's note. They thought they had sold an old ring, a small gold band, a little diamond, a velvet box with a faded ribbon around it. What they really sold was the last promise their father had hidden from them. Welcome to Mabel Creek Stories. Here we tell quiet stories about family secrets, second chances, forgotten promises, and the kind of justice that does not always arrive loudly. But when it comes, it changes everything. Settle in, stay with me, and listen carefully, because in Mabel Creek, even the smallest thing can carry the heaviest truth. People in Hawthorne Valley used to say that Beatrice Whitmore had the gentlest hands in town. Not soft hands, gentle ones. There is a difference. Soft hands belong to people who never had to work too hard. Gentle hands belong to people who worked hard and still chose not to become hard themselves. Beatrice had spent most of her life making something out of very little. She had patched denim knees by lamplight. She had stretched soup across hungry weeks. She had trimmed her own hair when the children needed school shoes. She had learned how to smile in public while wondering privately whether there would be enough money to pay the winter oil bill. And through all of it, there had been Daniel. Daniel Whitmore was not a rich man. He repaired tractors, built porch steps, fixed leaking roofs, sharpened mower blades, and knew the sound a furnace made right before it gave up. He was the kind of man who came home with sawdust in his cuffs and oil under his fingernails, but never came through the door without touching Beatrice lightly on the shoulder. Every evening, no matter how tired he was, he would stand behind her chair at the kitchen table, bend down, and kiss the top of her silvering hair. Then he would say the same thing. "Still here, Bea," and she would answer him the same way, "Still glad." Their children used to roll their eyes at it. Their son, Graham, would groan and say they were embarrassing. Their daughter, Celia, would make a face and tell them no one talked like that anymore. But Daniel never stopped saying it, and Beatrice never stopped answering. Some promises are not made in church. Some are made at kitchen tables, beside chipped plates and lukewarm coffee, in voices so ordinary that no one realizes they are sacred until one of the voices is gone. By the time Daniel died, the Whitmore house had grown quiet. The children were grown. The grandchildren came mostly for holidays, and even then they spent more time looking at their phones than looking at the old photographs on the walls. Graham had become a real estate agent in the county seat, the sort of man who wore polished shoes even to family cookouts and spoke of every building as if it were only a number waiting to be improved. Celia had married a man who sold investment plans, and she had learned to use words like portfolio and opportunity with the confidence of someone who believed those words could explain everything worth knowing. They were not cruel children in the loud way. They did not shout at strangers. They did not forget birthdays. They sent flowers when expected. They wrote neat cards at Christmas. But there was a coldness in them that Beatrice had trouble naming. They loved their mother, perhaps, but they loved the idea of settling things more. After Daniel's funeral, they began using that word often. Settle. We need to settle the house. We need to settle the accounts. We need to settle your belongings. We need to settle what comes next. Beatrice would sit at the kitchen table, her wedding ring turning slowly around her finger, and listen while they spoke as if her life had already become a pile of papers on someone else's desk. The house was old, but it was paid for. The land behind it was only a few acres, but it had road frontage now, and Graham said that made it valuable. The furniture was worn, but Celia said some of it was vintage. The barn was half-leaning, but a developer had once asked about the property, and Graham had remembered the number he mentioned. Money changes the way some people look at wood and windows. They stop seeing rooms. They see square footage. They stop seeing the place where a child learned to walk. They see market value. They stop seeing the chair where a father read the same newspaper for 30 years. They see estate assets. At first, Beatrice thought grief had made them restless. People do strange things when someone dies. They clean cupboards. They argue over tools. They get angry over coffee mugs and old coats because the real wound is too big to touch. So she forgave the way Graham tapped his pen on the kitchen table while asking where Daniel kept the deed. She forgave the way Celia opened closets without asking. She forgave the little sighs they exchanged when Beatrice said she was not ready to change anything. But then Celia began arriving with boxes, plain cardboard boxes from the grocery store. She said they were only for organizing. Then Graham brought a roll of price stickers. He said there was no harm in knowing what things were worth. Beatrice stood in the doorway of her bedroom and watched her daughter lift a porcelain lamp from Daniel's nightstand. "Your father bought that for me in Montgomery," Beatrice said. Celia turned the lamp over, looking for a maker's mark. "I know, Mom, but do you use it?" Beatrice looked at the little lamp. The shade was yellowed. The base had a crack near the bottom. Daniel had carried it home wrapped in his coat because it had started raining and he did not want the paper bag to tear. Use it. What a small word for something that had held so much. "I look at it," Beatrice said. Celia smiled sadly, the way people smile when they think patience is a gift they are giving you. That is not really the same thing. The estate sale was Graham's idea. He did not call it an estate sale at first. He called it a downsizing weekend, then a living sale. Then, when he forgot himself, he said estate sale in front of the woman from the local newspaper who came to take the advertisement. Beatrice heard the word from the hallway, estate, as if she were already buried beside Daniel under the maple tree at the cemetery. She walked into the kitchen slowly, one hand on the doorframe. Graham stopped speaking when he saw her. The newspaper woman looked embarrassed and folded her notebook shut. "Mom," Graham said, too brightly, "we are just helping." Beatrice looked at the boxes stacked beside the pantry. Helping whom? No one answered quickly enough. That should have told her everything. Still, the sale happened, not because Beatrice agreed, because Graham and Celia learned that an old woman can be worn down by repetition. They spoke to her in soft voices. They told her she could not maintain the house. They told her she needed to think of safety. They told her Daniel would not want her buried under things. They told her memories lived in the heart, not in objects. It sounded almost wise until Beatrice noticed that every object they wanted her to release was one someone else might buy. The morning of the sale arrived cold and clear. Hawthorne Valley was just waking up when strangers began walking across Beatrice Whitmore's front lawn. They carried coffee cups and canvas bags. They stepped onto the porch where Daniel had once fixed the railing with his own hands. They picked up picture frames, serving bowls, books, quilts, tools, china cups, and the little brass bell Daniel used to ring when supper was ready and Beatrice was still in the garden. Beatrice sat in the back room with the curtains half closed. Celia said it would be easier if she did not watch, so Beatrice listened. That was worse. She heard strangers asking prices for pieces of her life. She heard Graham bargaining over Daniel's old workbench. She heard Celia laughing with a woman who bought Beatrice's good tablecloth for less than the price of a church lunch. She heard coins in a metal cash box. She heard the scrape of chair legs. She heard the front door open and close, and open again. Every sound felt like someone taking another handful from the center of her chest. Around noon, the little velvet box disappeared from her dresser. Beatrice did not know it at first. She had taken off her wedding ring the night before because her fingers were swollen. She had placed it in the blue velvet box Daniel had given her on their wedding day. The box had a ribbon around it, faded from white to the color of old cream. Inside was the ring. A narrow gold band, a small diamond, nothing grand, but Daniel had saved for it by repairing tractors after work for 3 summers. He had proposed in the church parking lot because rain had ruined his plan to take Beatrice to the lake. He had apologized for the mud on his shoes and the plainness of the ring. Beatrice had laughed so hard she cried. Then she had said yes before he finished asking. That ring was not jewelry. It was a beginning. When Beatrice finally went upstairs in the late afternoon, her dresser looked strangely bare. The brush was gone. The little glass perfume bottle was gone. Daniel's handkerchief box was gone. The velvet ring box was gone. For a moment, she simply stood there. Her mind would not accept what her eyes saw. Then she opened the top drawer. She opened the second drawer. She opened the drawer where Daniel had kept the letters he wrote during the winter he worked out of state. She looked under the folded scarves. She looked in the sewing basket. She looked in the little dish where she kept safety pins and collar buttons. The ring was gone. Beatrice walked down the stairs carefully because her knees had gone weak. Graham was in the dining room counting money. Celia was wrapping unsold plates in newspaper. "Where is my wedding ring?" Beatrice asked. Celia looked up too quickly. Graham did not look up at all. "What ring?" he said. Beatrice placed one hand on the back of the dining chair. "My wedding ring, the one in the blue box, from my dresser." Celia's face changed, not into guilt exactly, into the expression of someone who had hoped not to have this conversation until later. "Mom," she said, "we thought you did not wear it anymore." Beatrice stared at her. "I took it off last night." Graham closed the metal cash box. It was just sitting there with the sale items. "No," Beatrice said. The word came out soft, but everyone in the room heard it. "No, it was not." Celia reached for her hand. "Mom, please do not make this harder than it needs to be." Beatrice stepped back before her daughter could touch her. "Where is it?" Graham rubbed his forehead. "A jeweler bought it." The room seemed to tilt. "What jeweler?" "A man from Belhaven. I think his name was Mercer. Owen Mercer. He said he restores old pieces. He paid a fair price." "A fair price?" Beatrice looked at her son as if he had spoken in another language. "There are some things that do not have a fair price," she said. Graham's mouth tightened. "Mom, it was not doing anyone any good sitting in a box." Beatrice turned toward the window. Outside, a woman she did not know was carrying Daniel's ladder toward a pickup truck. The ladder was too long for the truck bed, and it hung out over the tailgate like a question no one wanted to answer. Beatrice put one hand against her chest. For a moment, she thought she might fall. Celia told her to sit. Graham told her not to get herself worked up. But Beatrice did not sit. She walked to the front door. She stepped out onto the porch. People were still moving across the lawn with things that had once belonged to her life: a ceramic rooster, a stack of quilts, a box of Daniel's nails, a stranger's hands on her husband's fishing rod. Beatrice looked at them all. Then she walked down the steps and began taking the price stickers off whatever she could reach. Celia ran after her. "Mom, stop!" Beatrice peeled a yellow sticker from Daniel's old rocking chair. "Mom, people already paid for some of these." Beatrice peeled another sticker from the brass bell. Celia's voice became sharp. "You are embarrassing yourself." Beatrice turned then, and in all her years of motherhood, Celia had never seen her mother look like that. Not angry, not wild, just emptied. "No," Beatrice said. "You are embarrassing me, both of you, in front of strangers, in front of your father's memory, in front of God if he has the patience to keep watching." The lawn went still. Some people looked away, some pretended not to listen. Graham came down the steps, his face red. "That is enough," he said under his breath. Beatrice looked at her son. "Yes," she said, "it is." The sale ended early, not because Graham wanted it to, because the town began to feel what had happened. People in small towns will buy a stranger's cake plate for a bargain, but they do not like realizing they have walked through someone else's wound with muddy shoes. One by one, they left. Some returned what they had bought and refused their money back. Some placed things quietly on the porch. A young mother brought back Daniel's fishing rod and cried when Beatrice thanked her. But the ring did not come back. By dusk, the front lawn was mostly empty. The house looked bruised. Spaces appeared where furniture had stood. Dust lines marked the floor like pale ghosts. Celia tried to explain again. Graham tried to say they had only wanted to help. Beatrice listened until they finished. Then she said one sentence. "You sold the hand your father held." Neither of them answered. That night, Beatrice slept in Daniel's old flannel shirt with her left hand curled against her chest. The skin where the ring had been felt naked and cold. Across town, Owen Mercer sat under a green lamp in the back room of Mercer Jewelry and Watch Repair. The shop had belonged to his grandfather, then his mother, then him. It sat between a bakery and a barber shop on Main Street in Bellhaven, with a striped awning and a front window full of watches that had not been fashionable since before Owen was born. Owen liked old things, not because they were worth money, though some were. He liked them because old things carried the mark of being kept. A watch with scratches around the stem told him someone had wound it every morning. A locket worn smooth at the hinge told him someone had opened it often. A ring thinned on one side told him it had stayed on a hand through work, soap, weather, and years. That evening, he opened the blue velvet box from the Whitmore sale. He had noticed something strange when he bought it. Not the ring, the box. It was heavier than it should have been. At the sale, Graham had told him the ring belonged to his late father's estate. Owen had asked whether the mother wanted to keep it. Graham had smiled in a way Owen did not trust. "She does not wear it anymore," he had said. Owen had looked toward the house then. Through the front window, he had seen an older woman sitting in the shadows with her hands folded tight in her lap. He should have walked away. He knew that later. But he bought the ring because something about the box bothered him, and because sometimes the only way to keep an object from disappearing is to take it somewhere safer than the hands currently selling it. Under the green lamp, Owen removed the ring and set it on a square of black velvet. Inside the band, worn nearly smooth, were 3 words. "Still here, B." Owen sat back. He did not know Beatrice Whitmore, but the inscription was not the sort of thing a person sold casually. He turned the box over. The velvet bottom was stitched more thickly than usual. Not new stitching, old stitching. Careful. He took a magnifying lens from the drawer, then a thin bone tool used for lifting watch faces. Along the seam, beneath the velvet lip, he found a thread that did not match. He worked slowly. Owen was patient with old things. After several minutes, the false bottom lifted. Inside was a folded piece of onion skin paper, browned at the edges. A note. On the outside, in a man's careful handwriting, were the words, "For the honest hand that finds this." Owen did not open it right away. He sat very still. The rain began after midnight. In Beatrice's house, water tapped softly against the bedroom window. She lay awake, listening to the empty places below her. The house sounded different without its things. Every room echoed. Every creak seemed louder. She had always thought a home was made of people. Daniel had said that often. "A house is wood and nails, B. A home is what we forgive inside it." But now she wondered if a home could be injured when too much was taken from it at once. Near dawn, she got up and went downstairs. In the kitchen, she made tea and sat at the table in the dark. Her left hand moved by habit toward her ring finger. There was nothing there. She closed her eyes. "Still here," Daniel had always said. For the first time since his death, Beatrice whispered into the empty kitchen, "I am not sure I am." The knock came just after breakfast, 3 short taps at the back door, not the front door. People who know old houses know the back door is where real news enters. Beatrice opened it and found Owen Mercer standing on the porch with his hat in his hands. He was a tall man with tired eyes, dark hair touched with gray, and the uneasy expression of someone who had spent the night deciding to do the right thing. "Mrs. Whitmore?" he asked. Beatrice nodded. "My name is Owen Mercer. I bought something yesterday that I believe should not have been sold." He held out the blue velvet box. Beatrice did not take it at first. For a moment, she only stared. Then her hands began to shake. Owen opened the box himself and showed her the ring. "I am sorry," he said. "I should have stopped it before it left your house." Beatrice reached for the ring with 2 fingers, as if touching it too quickly might make it vanish. She slipped it back onto her swollen finger. It did not slide all the way down. She did not care. Owen swallowed. There is something else. He handed her the folded note from beneath the lining. Beatrice knew Daniel's handwriting before she read a word. Her knees weakened. Owen stepped forward. She waved him back and sat slowly at the kitchen table. The paper trembled in her hands. The first line read, "B. If this letter has found its way back to you, then someone tried to turn our promise into money." Beatrice made a sound that was not quite a sob. Owen stood quietly by the door, looking down at the floorboards. She kept reading. "I hope I am wrong. I hope our children are kinder than I fear. I hope the ring stays on your hand until you decide to take it off, and not 1 minute before. But love is not blindness, and I have seen the way they look at this house when they think we are not watching. So I have made arrangements. There is a key taped under the 3rd drawer in my workbench. It opens the box at Harlan and Pike, the law office in Belhaven. Take Owen Mercer with you if he is the one who found this. If another honest person found it, take them. Do not go alone." Beatrice stopped reading. Her eyes lifted to Owen. He looked as stunned as she felt. "I do not know your husband," he said. Beatrice touched the paper. "No," she whispered, but he knew there would be one honest hand. The workbench had not sold. No one had wanted it because it was heavy, scarred, and smelled faintly of motor oil. Graham had called it junk. Celia had suggested paying someone to haul it away. Beatrice had refused, though she had not known why. Now she and Owen crossed the yard through wet grass and opened the old barn. Daniel's tools were gone from the pegboard. The shelves looked bare. But the workbench remained beneath the small window. Its surface was marked with saw cuts, hammer dents, and a dark stain from the time Daniel had tried to repair a carburetor during a thunderstorm. Beatrice ran her hand over it. The 3rd drawer stuck, as it always had. Owen pulled gently. The drawer opened with a wooden groan. Taped beneath it was a small brass key. Beatrice closed her eyes. Daniel. Not as a cry, as a hello. Harlan and Pike occupied the 2nd floor above the old bank in Belhaven. The law office smelled of paper, coffee, and raincoats. Milton Harlan had been Daniel's lawyer for years, though Beatrice had never understood why a man who owned very little needed a lawyer. Now, Milton sat behind his desk with Daniel's letter in his hands, his face pale. He read it once, then again. Finally, he looked at Beatrice. "He told me this might happen," he said. Beatrice folded her hands in her lap. "What might happen?" Milton looked toward Owen. "Your husband came here about 2 years before he passed. He changed several things. He said he wanted no fight while he was alive. He said he wanted to give the children every chance to prove him wrong." Beatrice's throat tightened. "And if they did not?" Milton took a small metal box from a locked cabinet and set it on the desk. Then he used Daniel's brass key. Inside were documents, photographs, letters, and a second envelope addressed to Graham and Celia. Milton handed Beatrice a paper clipped to the top. "Daniel placed the house in a trust," he said. "You have the right to live there for the rest of your life, and no one can sell it, mortgage it, empty it, or remove your personal belongings without your written permission." Beatrice stared at him. The words came slowly. "They cannot sell the house?" "No." "They cannot force me out?" "No." "They cannot come in and take things?" Milton's mouth pressed into a thin line. "No. And what they did yesterday may create a serious problem for them." Owen looked toward the window. Rain moved down the glass in narrow lines. Beatrice thought of Graham counting money in the dining room. She thought of Celia lifting Daniel's lamp from the nightstand. She thought of the yellow price sticker on the brass bell. Milton continued, "There is another condition. Daniel left a separate account, not large by some standards, but enough to matter. It was meant to help Graham and Celia after your death, provided they treated you with dignity, kept the home intact, and did not attempt to profit from your belongings while you were alive." Beatrice let out a breath. Milton handed her the second envelope. "Daniel wrote this for them. He said it was not to be opened unless they crossed the line." Beatrice did not open it. Not yet. Graham arrived at the law office before noon. Celia came 10 minutes later. They entered with the expressions of people prepared to be inconvenienced, not accused. Graham looked first at Owen. What is he doing here? Owen did not answer. Celia looked at Beatrice's hand and saw the ring. Her face changed. "Mom," she said, "where did you get that?" Beatrice did not speak. Milton Harlan gestured to the chairs. "Please, sit down." Graham remained standing. "I have appointments. You will want to hear this," Milton said. Something in the lawyer's voice made Graham sit. Milton explained the trust. He explained the house. He explained the personal property clause. He explained Daniel's account and the condition attached to it. With every sentence, Graham's face grew more rigid. Celia's eyes filled with something that looked almost like fear. When Milton finished, Graham laughed once. It was not a real laugh. "This is ridiculous. Dad was never like this." Beatrice looked at him then. "Your father was exactly like this, quiet until it mattered." Celia turned toward her mother. "We were trying to help you." Beatrice nodded slowly. "By selling my wedding ring?" Celia looked away. Graham leaned forward. "Mom, you are making this emotional. We had practical concerns." Owen Mercer spoke for the first time. "Practical people do not usually sell a woman's wedding ring while she is in the next room." Graham's head snapped toward him. "This is family business." Owen held his gaze. "It stopped being only family business when you put a price on a promise." Milton opened Daniel's second envelope. He did not ask permission from Graham or Celia. He looked at Beatrice. She nodded. Milton read aloud. "Graham, Celia, if you are hearing this, then you did what I hoped you would never do. You looked at your mother and saw delay. You looked at her house and saw money. You looked at her memories and saw clutter. You looked at the ring I placed on her hand and decided it had a price. It does not. Nothing that taught you love had a price. Not the crib I built for Graham. Not the quilt your mother stitched for Celia. Not the kitchen table where we waited up for you when you were late. Not the porch where you both learned to ride bicycles. Not the bedrooms where your mother prayed over your fevers. You may not remember those things. She does, and I did. I cannot stop death from taking me first, but I can stop greed from taking what I promised to protect. The house is your mother's home. Her belongings are her belongings. Her ring is her ring. And if you tried to take them before she was ready, then the money I set aside for you will not go to you. It will go to the Hawthorne Valley Widows Fund in your mother's name." A silence settled over the office. Not the soft silence of grief, the hard silence of consequence. Graham's face had gone gray. Celia pressed her fingers against her lips. Milton lowered the letter but was not finished. "There is one more line." He looked at Beatrice before reading it. "B, if they failed you, I am sorry, but I am still here." Beatrice covered her mouth. For years, Daniel had said those words at the kitchen table. "Still here, B." And now, even from the grave, he had found a way to say them again. Celia began to cry, not dramatically, quietly, the way people cry when they finally hear themselves from the outside. Graham did not cry. He stared at the desk. Milton slid a paper toward him. "You will return every item sold yesterday or reimburse the buyers and restore the property. You will provide a full written list. You will return all money collected, and until this is resolved, you will not enter your mother's home without her permission." Graham looked at Beatrice. "Mom." It was the first time in months he had said the word without trying to move her somewhere. Beatrice looked at him. "You heard your father." That afternoon, Hawthorne Valley learned two things. First, that Daniel Whitmore had been quieter than people understood. Second, that Beatrice Whitmore was not as alone as her children had believed. Owen Mercer returned to his shop with the ring box, now empty of secrets. He fixed the torn lining free of charge and polished the ring until the inscription inside could be read more clearly. "Still here, B." The buyers from the sale began receiving phone calls. Some had already planned to return what they bought. Others had to be asked. A few had to be paid more than they had paid, because that is how shame sometimes charges interest. The porcelain lamp returned to Daniel's nightstand. The The brass bell returned to the kitchen. The fishing rod returned to the mudroom. The quilts came back smelling faintly of another woman's car, but Beatrice washed them and folded them into the cedar chest. The workbench stayed in the barn. No one called it junk again. For 3 weeks, Graham and Celia worked under the eyes of the town they had once tried to impress. They carried furniture back into the house. They repurchased tools. They found the woman who had bought the tablecloth and apologized on Beatrice's front porch while she stood with her arms crossed. Celia brought back Daniel's lamp herself. She placed it on the nightstand and looked at it for a long time. "I did not know he carried it in his coat," she said. Beatrice stood beside her. "You never asked." Celia nodded. "No," she whispered, "I did not." Graham's apology came harder. Some people have to lose the argument before they find the truth. He came one evening after sunset when Beatrice was sitting on the porch with tea. He stood at the bottom of the steps like a boy who had broken a window. "I thought I was being responsible," he said. Beatrice looked at the yard. "No, Graham, responsible is what your father did. What you did was convenient." He swallowed. "I am sorry." Beatrice did not answer right away. Forgiveness, she had learned, is not the same as pretending nothing happened. After a while, she said, "I believe you are sorry now." Graham looked relieved too quickly. Then Beatrice added, "But I need time before I believe you understand." He nodded. That was the first honest nod he had given her in months. The money Daniel had set aside did go to the Hawthorne Valley Widows Fund. Beatrice signed the papers herself. Graham and Celia did not contest it. Perhaps they knew better. Perhaps Daniel's letter had cut too deep. Perhaps somewhere beneath the embarrassment, they had begun to remember who had raised them. The fund paid for roof repairs, medical rides, winter heating bills, and groceries for women who had spent their lives holding families together, only to find themselves alone at the end of the table. Beatrice did not want her name on anything. Milton insisted Daniel had required it, so a small brass plaque appeared in the town office hallway. The Beatrice Whitmore Promise Fund. Below it, in smaller letters, were the words Daniel had chosen, "For the hands that held everything together." The first time Beatrice saw the plaque, she laughed through tears. Daniel had always believed a good sentence should fit on a piece of scrap wood. Months passed. The house changed, but slowly, not because Graham or Celia demanded it, because Beatrice chose it. She gave the heavy dining set to a young couple from church who had 4 children and no table large enough for all of them. She gave Daniel's spare tools to a neighbor boy who wanted to learn repair work. She gave Celia the porcelain lamp one Sunday afternoon, but only after telling her the story of Montgomery twice. Celia cried the second time. Beatrice kept the brass bell. Every now and then, when she was alone in the kitchen, she rang it once, not for supper, just to hear the sound move through the rooms. Owen Mercer became a friend. He stopped by once a month to check the old clocks in the house, though Beatrice suspected most of them did not need checking. Sometimes he brought a pastry from the bakery. Sometimes Beatrice sent him home with soup. Once, he asked if she ever regretted learning what Daniel had feared. Beatrice thought for a long time. Then she said, "No, I regret that he was right, but I am grateful he loved me enough to prepare for it." Owen nodded. "That is a hard kind of love." Beatrice looked at the ring on her hand. "Most real love is." On the first anniversary of Daniel's death, Graham and Celia came to the house without boxes. That mattered. Celia brought flowers. Graham brought a repaired hinge for the back gate. They did not talk about selling. They did not talk about property. They asked Beatrice where she wanted the flowers. They asked if the gate had always sagged. They asked what Daniel used to plant along the fence. Small questions, late questions, but questions at last. After lunch, Beatrice took them to the barn. She opened the drawer where Daniel had hidden the key. The tape was still there, curled at the edges. "He knew you," she said softly. Graham looked down. Celia wiped her cheek. Beatrice closed the drawer. "But he loved you too." Do not mistake consequence for hatred. He did what parents do when children forget themselves. He set a boundary strong enough to survive him. Graham nodded. "I wish he had said it to us." Beatrice looked at him. "He did, many times. You just did not think he meant it." No one spoke after that. Outside, the wind moved through the grass. Inside the barn, the old workbench stood in the light from the small window, not valuable, not pretty, still there. Years later, people in Hawthorne Valley still told the story of the estate sale that ended before sunset. They told it as a warning sometimes. Do not sell what you do not understand. Do not call a memory clutter just because it is not yours. Do not assume quiet people are unprotected. But Beatrice never told it that way. When someone asked about the ring, she would turn it gently on her finger and smile. She did not say her children sold it. She did not say a jeweler found a hidden letter. She did not say a lawyer took their inheritance and sent it to widows who needed it more. She said something simpler. My Daniel knew how to keep a promise. And if the person asking stayed long enough, she would tell them about the rainy proposal in the church parking lot. She would tell them about the lamp wrapped in his coat. She would tell them about soup stretched across hard weeks and porch steps repaired after dark. She would tell them that marriage is not made of grand speeches, but of small vows kept so often they become the floor under your life. Then, if the room was quiet, she might slide the ring off and show the inscription inside. Still here, B. The words were small, almost worn away, but they had survived work, grief, greed, an estate sale, a jeweler's lamp, a hidden note, and the foolishness of children who thought everything old could be priced. Some promises do not shout. They wait. They hide beneath velvet. They sit inside boxes. They sleep under workbench drawers. They wait for the honest hand. And when the moment finally comes, they open, not with revenge, not with noise, but with the kind of truth that puts a home back together. Beatrice lived in that house for many more seasons. In spring, she opened the windows. In summer, she sat on the porch after supper. In autumn, she swept leaves from the steps Daniel had built. In winter, she lit the porcelain lamp beside the bed and watched its cracked base glow softly in the dark. Every night, before sleeping, she touched the ring. And sometimes, when the house settled and the wind moved against the shutters, she could almost hear Daniel behind her chair again. Still here, B. And Beatrice, older now, quieter now, but no longer emptied, would close her eyes and answer, still glad.